what is it about your work that gives you immense fulfillment? What is it about your work that makes you actually want to get out of bed and show up every day to help others? That also can become a really powerful part of your brand differentiation story as well. So
Hey, my feel good friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social podcast, the show that helps you show up online authentically without wasting your precious time, losing your mind, or selling your soul. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I cannot wait once again, as always, to share today's guest with you because we are not only talking with the amazing Hayley Maxwell, but we are also talking about very actionable processes for how you can hone in on that authentic, awesome it factor that makes your brand what it is. Why showing up authentically online is the absolute best way you can build a brand that will work for you long term and feel confident about when it comes to showing up and promoting yourself and your business. I know you are going to love this conversation. So if you do, make sure that you 1, hit that subscribe button, 2, leave us a 5-star review, and 3, go ahead and share this episode with anyone in your business world who you think could also use to listen to it. Because the more we spread our feel-good message, the more you share these episodes with your business friends who could also find them valuable, the more we will be able to grow our feel-good community and just keep spreading that authentic, genuine feel-good message across the business interwebs, right? If you do share it on Instagram, make sure that you tag me. I am at feelgoodsocial. I would love to see it and reshare it and just spread the love right back to you. Okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. Hey friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I'm here to help you market your business in a genuine way that works without wasting your precious time. On this show, we chat about social media strategy and mindset tips with a focus on, you guessed it, feeling good. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some genuine conversation for the good of your biz. Today's episode is sponsored by our brand new podcast, Authentic AI for Entrepreneurs. If you love the Feel Good Social podcast, I know you are going to love this new show where we explore how we can leverage the power of AI technology without wasting our time or selling our souls. Together, we'll dive headfirst into the world of AI for solopreneurs and unlock the secrets to saving time, boosting productivity, and up-leveling your business with the help of AI, all while staying true to yourself and your brand. Are you ready to unlock the full potential of AI and revolutionize your business? Don't forget to subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode. Let's embrace making AI work for you. Hi, Hayley. Thank you so much for coming on the Feel Good Social podcast, lady. I am so excited to finally be bringing you on the show.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, of course. I did already introduce you just a little bit in the intro, but I would love to hear from you. Who are you? What do you do? And who do you serve?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Hayley Maxwell, and so I work with introverted female coaches and consultants, and I help them to really create a sort of radically authentic personal brand and an unmistakable message. So essentially, I'm a personal brand and messaging coach for introverts.
Oh, man, I'm so excited to geek out with you about this. I feel like I say this every episode, but it's especially true for this one, just because I feel like the power behind your message. And I can't wait to chat with you about how you do this with introverts specifically, because I feel like that's so interesting. Yeah. However, I do always like to start off these podcast interviews by asking just a little bit about you and your journey, how you got started doing what you do and what it's looked like to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've actually been working in kind of the communication space for about 20 years or so now. I went to university and did my degree in PR media and went straight into communications roles. And that spanned working in-house for organizations as well as working in agency land and PR roles. I continued my studies and master's degree in communication studies. And then basically when I was working in a PR agency, I felt that I'm an introvert myself, and I felt that I was living in agency land in kind of a bit of a world that was an extrovert's world. And we'd often go into client meetings and sit around the table, and all my lovely colleagues would be there sharing their ideas and throwing things out on the table for the clients to consider while the clients were in the meeting. And I'd always be sitting there very quietly, listening to what was going on, thinking about what I wanted to say, coming up with ideas in my head, but always feeling like I could never get these ideas out at the table. I always wanted to do it one-to-one afterwards with the client, but inevitably that meant that sometimes I would miss out on sharing my ideas because other people would get there first. And what sort of happened was that over time, I really felt within that organization that I was almost being overlooked and undervalued. I was really blooming good at the work that I did. I built really great, trusting relationships with my clients, but I felt like because of my introverted nature that I just, wasn't being seen in the same light as some of my other colleagues who were maybe more extroverted and could show up in a slightly different way to me. So after I had my first daughter, I essentially decided not to go back to agency land, and I decided to start out on my own. And that was about 12 years ago now. I've had my business for 12 years. And when some of my clients actually from the agency heard that I was going out on my own, they came to me and asked me for help to support them. So that's how my business started. And then over the years, I have sort of niche down. As you do when you're in your own business, it takes a little while to find your feet and find your own flow and really figure out exactly who you love working with and what part you love doing the most. And so that essentially over the years has just ended up with me really focusing on that personal branding side and also the messaging side. And really, it just comes down to reputation. So building your reputation really intentionally for how you want to be known and making sure that you've got a really powerful, strong, concise message that you can share with the world. Because my belief is that when you have a really strong understanding of what, one, your direction is, and two, what you really want to be known for and how you would like people to talk about you when you're not in the room. And when you've got that message, it fills you with this incredible, fierce energy inside. And so that can really propel you to show up in a way that maybe you've never shown up before. So a bigger, clearer, more powerful way. And that's regardless of whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. So it's really about finding those pieces from within you that are going to help you to really step out of the shadows and just show up as yourself, give you that confidence and courageousness to show up as yourself.
Oh, you guys, I can't ever not geek out during these interview conversations, but especially I'm geeking out so much because I feel this. I feel like my listeners have probably heard me say this before, honestly, but I feel this in my soul because I did go through a similar process like myself within my own business in a way where it was like, when I first started out, I was listening to all the other entrepreneurs online and following their to-dos and trying to show up in a similar way as them, which I feel like so many of us do. And it just wasn't feeling right to me. It was feeling like icky and unaligned. And I was frustrated and I was feeling bad about myself and my business and putting pressure on myself to show up in a certain way. And that's just a part of my personality in general, is that I really can't do that. It just makes my skin crawl. And so then, I finally leaned into who I truly am and have just leaned into showing up authentically and being messy and all those different things. And just everything clicked so much better. And it just does give me so much more confidence to show up in my business and my life and not have to worry about navigating all these things. And at the same time has made me feel more of a passion maybe for showing up and helping others do the same. Or like it wasn't just about me necessarily, like showing up as myself has allowed me to feel more excited about other people and all this different stuff. So I don't know, I just feel this and I love it. And I love that you help women do this, and especially introverts too. When it comes to working with clients and stuff, how do you get started? What does that look like?
Yeah. So for me, I either work with people specifically on, say, their messaging strategy, or if they're wanting to look at sort of their personal brand as a whole, that includes messaging strategy as well, because I see messaging as a really integral part of our business, really. And there's so much that we can struggle with in our business if we don't have our messaging completely defined, or if we don't know what we want to say, if we don't know how to say things. So it's such an important piece of work to figure out first. And I always talk about needing to work on your messaging before you do anything like your design work. So, your visual identity, before you get any copy written, because the way that I talk about messaging, for example, is that it's not just the written words that you're using. What we should be thinking about when it comes to messaging is actually how we communicate our message visually, so through our identity, and how we communicate it through the written word. So that would be through our copy, how we communicate it through other visuals like photography, and also the spoken word, and how we communicate our message through the emotions that we're sharing as well. So a big part of the work that I do with clients is making sure from a messaging perspective that when they're communicating, they are sharing their message in the most effective, powerful way. And when we have got all of those things in alignment, so when we've got the visual messaging, we've got the written word, the spoken word, the emotional side all working together, it just helps to amplify what we're all about. It helps us to just amplify the power of our message. And I think that's something that's not spoken about a lot, is that how we actually do it from all of these different points. We tend to think about messaging as just being about that written word, or what am I going to talk about? And yes, of course, that's a huge part of it, but there are these other untapped areas that we can use in order to help our message to come across more effectively. So that's a big part of the messaging work that I do. But when it comes to building a personal brand, I tend to break it down there are 4 core stages, and that would be looking at what makes someone unique, for example. So really doing a deep dive into who a person is and what makes them different. Because I think that a lot of the time when we are doing our work, and whether we are social media coach or consultant or a copywriter, we often feel like, well, there's so many people doing what I do. How can I stand out? What is it about me that is different to other people? And I can come back to that in just a minute. So that's a core part of what I do at the start, is really understanding who you are as a person and what you actually want to be known for. Because if you don't know what you want to be known for, it makes it really hard to think about strategically about what you need to be sharing with the world in order to get to wherever it is that you're wanting to go to get to. So it's all about making sure that your personal brand and your messaging is helping you to achieve your goals. So that would be the first part. The second part would be really pulling out what your message is. And so that's really looking at how to draw out that sort of momentous, unmistakable message that is you, and making sure, again, so you've got an overarching theme when it comes to your brand. So what you're all about, the core message that is like your rally cry, and then having really strong messaging pillars that help you to stay really focused on the things that you need to be talking about and sharing that are important to your ideal clients, and also are going to help you to become known as an expert in your space. And then looking at packaging up, I talk about it as packaging up your prowess. So that would be looking at the type of work that you do and looking at how we can package that in order for your brilliance and unique talents to shine more. And so we would also use your messaging in order to communicate how you work with people, what your offers and services are. We would look at things like your signature. So your signature offer, your signature talks, your signature lead magnet, so that it all fits together in this nice ecosystem that really just truly aligns to who you are as a person. So it's just about working through things step by step in order to draw more of you out into your own business, that you feel really confident about getting out there and sharing yourself with the world. And that kind of forms the fourth part, which is really just getting out there and roaring your message far and wide. So essentially looking at how, for you as a person, you are going to do that. So for introverts, for example, when do you feel most energized in terms of showing up? So if you don't like being at big networking events, then maybe it is that you do more kind of one-to-one relationship building. Maybe it is that you put strong boundaries around your social media time. So it's really about then looking at what kind of strategy you need to use as an individual that is going to be sustainable for you to share yourself with the world, to share your talents, your brilliance with the world. Because I truly believe that for every one of us, there's an abundance of clients that are out there for us who really need to hear about our services and the way that we can help them. And yeah, I just love helping women who are maybe feeling a little bit insecure or worried about putting themselves out into the world, to do that in a way that, is going to feel really good and right to them, so that they don't have to do any of the marketing tactics that just don't feel great for them. Because we know that if you're forcing yourself to do a certain marketing tactic, it's never going to be sustainable for you, because it's not going to feel pleasurable. It's not going to feel easy. And so it's all about finding out where your strengths are when it comes to showing up in the world and really leveraging those strengths that you have inside. So, yeah.
Wow. I'm over here. Yes. I'm just drinking up everything you're saying, because that was amazing. And I feel like I had so many questions, and still I'm like, wow, this is great. And also I want to hire you like right now, just hearing you say that. So
thank you.
Will you help me? But yes. Okay. Also guys, Hayley is wearing a cheetah or leopard print of some sort. Print, yes. A leopard print. And leopard is like a big part of your branding and all that different stuff. And I heard you say roar your message and stuff. So you are living what you're speaking, lady, yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And there's actually a little, I will share very quickly, there's actually a little bit more depth to it as well, because I don't know if, and I don't think many people do, but leopards themselves, every leopard has a unique print. So no leopard print is the same. And so that, for me, really highlights that unique part of us as individuals. But also leopards themselves are very shy creatures. So they will often camouflage themselves. They'll hide up in trees and things like that. So they will tend to maybe shy away from other animals. They keep themselves to themselves. But when they come out of their tree and they put themselves out into the world, if you like, they've seen something that they want to go after, they're incredibly concise and they're incredibly powerful. And it's that whole idea that I infuse into my brand. It's really about creating a brand that feels really radically authentic to you so that you can be far more fierce in business. But that doesn't mean going out and being fierce in terms of being grabbing and all the rest of it. It's about being fierce in a way that is right for you. So it's about being powerful. Yeah, so that's a little bit of a behind the scenes look at like why I also use leopards and leopard print in my brand. But I am a big leopard print fan. So yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. Just themes all over the place. I'm like, shoot, now I need to find like some sort of animal for Feel Good Social. I don't know. But I love that. Oh, I love the story behind that. That is so cool. And I love that you like relate it to introverts and all the different stuff. I do want to dive a little bit deeper into the specifics of maybe especially, I think you said, let's go back to this, like when you were telling us about your process and stuff. But I know a lot of people, like it took me a full year to really learn the lesson of, okay, Kinsey, you can't show up online trying to be someone else. You can't even really show up online trying to be someone who you're not. Like you need to show up as you. And who are you? I feel like a lot of times people are like, getting to the core of their true authenticity, their true heart, and then the message behind that and how they can show up with the world. If people are having trouble like figuring out that core element of who they are and then how they can show up that way, like where do you start with your clients when it comes to that?
Yeah. So the first thing that I tend to do with my clients is, so I have a little bit of a framework that helps people to really look within themselves to draw out what makes them different and why they are doing what they do. Because I think it's really important to feel really connected and rooted to who we are and why we're actually doing the work that we choose to do. So I can run through that framework really quickly with you, if you like.
Oh, I love that.
So the first part that I always talk to clients about is around their purpose, because really that is it's your sort of, to sound a little bit cliche, it's your sort of guiding North Star. It's what gets you out of bed in the morning. And so I believe that you've really got to know what that purpose is, because and I'm talking about purpose beyond obviously making money to pay the bills, because yes, of course, we all need to do that. But what is it about your work that gives you immense fulfillment? What is it about your work that makes you actually want to get out of bed and show up every day to help others? So what is it that you do that you absolutely love? Because that also can become a really powerful part of your brand differentiation story as well. So really sitting down and doing that work to actually extract what your brand purpose is a really powerful part of centering yourself so that you can begin to communicate more powerfully and with a greater energy. Because once you've got that purpose inside you, as I said a little bit earlier, you can really start to feel that fire lighting up inside you. And that gives you the energy and enthusiasm, particularly to keep going when, things in business get a bit tricky, when you're going through sort of ups and downs. So I always work through purpose with my clients first, just to try and extract that and help them to understand themselves, why they're doing that work. And then we look at how they can communicate that in a powerful way across all of their platforms. And then the second part would be, I work with my clients on looking at what their principles are. And so when I'm talking about principles, really, I'm talking about the values that you hold really closely to you. So what are your unique business values that help you to really run your business on a day-to-day basis? What would you never, ever compromise when it comes to the work that you do or how you work with your clients? And what a lot of the kind of typical advice around values work, uncovering your values, is that we need to go on to Google. We Google, how do I choose my brand values? We are given a page with a lot of different words on it. And yes, you can do that. You could use that as a starting point, but I just really encourage people to sit down and think really carefully about the way that they want to be remembered, how they really want to work with people. What is it that they want to really communicate through the relationships that they are creating? And look at what values come through that. And then also look at your values in terms of what does that actually mean for your clients, for your ideal clients who are maybe thinking about working with you. So you've chosen your values that are really strong and important to you. So say you've got your 4 core values. What does that mean for your clients in a practical sense? How does that affect the way that you show up in your business? So thinking about it from that deeper level can really help us to separate ourselves from other people. It's part of our uniqueness as well, because we're not all going to have the same purpose. We're not all going to have the same unique values. So really doing that purpose, values, principles, alignment work is a really powerful place to start. So that would be the first 2 parts of kind of the framework that I take people through. And the next part would be around your perspectives. And that's really looking at and drawing out what unique perspectives you have about your industry, about the work that you do, about your clients' beliefs or your ideal clients' beliefs, and actually starting to get that down on paper. So I'm a massive fan of actually just sitting quietly and getting things out onto paper, scribbling those notes down, because to me, the process of actually writing things on paper is also the thinking process. So I always encourage my clients to sit down and spend a bit of time really brainstorming and thinking through what perspectives they have, what beliefs that they've got about their work, their industry, what things they see that maybe they don't agree with, that maybe go against the grain of what other people in their industries are talking about. And then we come back together and we look at those things that they've come up with, and we then look at that from that thought leadership perspective as well, in terms of how they can begin to start talking about some of these things in a way that's comfortable to them. Because often what happens is, as they're writing about their perspectives, they are essentially unearthing things from within them that maybe they've been too afraid to talk about before, because they've been worried about maybe putting people off them or something along those lines. And so generally at that point, we have a really good conversation about the fact that the reality is that not everyone out there is going to like the things that we share. Not everyone out there is going to have the same opinions as us. They're going to have different opinions, and that's perfectly okay. And so it's just sometimes taking those little steps to share little things, perspectives and beliefs that you really believe in yourself, just taking those baby steps to start getting those out there and find your voice, find your footing, so that you begin to feel more confident in sharing your authentic points of view and your authentic perspectives. So that would be the next section. And then we look at personality as well. And so we've already touched on this a little bit, but this is really about embracing who you are in business, because I'm firmly of the belief that you do not need to be anyone else but yourself in business in order to be successful. And when I say successful, that is, defining success in your own terms, not on anyone else's terms. And I think particularly for introverts or maybe shy people, there is this sense that they feel like they need to be a little bit more extroverted than they are to show up online. And it's just not the case. I think we all have to look within us and look at what aspects of our personality are our strengths and amplify those. And so we can do things like we can talk to our friends and family and ask them what they feel our biggest personality strengths are. We can talk to clients that we've had before that we would love to clone and ask them what attracted them to us. What was it about our personality? And so it's really about diving into our own personality and the strengths that we have, understanding what our personality, I don't want to say weaknesses are, but where we feel that we shine less in terms of our own personality, and then adjusting our business approach, our business strategy, our social media approach, in order to allow our personality strengths to really shine so that we can always just show up as ourselves. And again, it can be about taking those baby steps as well. And I think a lot of people still feel a bit of what I call the corporate hangover. And so what I mean by that is if you have worked in a corporate space for any number of years, particularly a very formal corporate space, then often when we leave, we're left with this kind of hangover that is, I can't show up in that particular way because that's not professional. I can't just show up as me because people don't do that. That's not the way that business is done. You have to show up buttoned up. And I think that there's more acceptance these days around being yourself online, but there are still a lot of people out there who feel like they're butting up against this corporate hangover where they just can't quite climb over that wall of just being themselves. So it's really about helping them to understand their personality and letting them show up as themselves. So yeah, digging into some of that personality work, finding out a little bit more about who you are, and then just really bringing that to the table and being unapologetically you, because that's what's going to attract the people to you who you are going to really connect with and align with at that personality level. And so particularly if you are in a coaching space, often people, it's not so much about the service that you're offering. That is a big part of a consideration, but people want to understand whether they can vibe with you, whether they like your energy, whether they enjoy your jokes, your personality. And if they don't connect with your personality, or if you're holding it back, then they're not going to be able to see who you are as an individual, and they're not going to be able to figure out whether you're the kind of person that they would like to work with. So that would be the next part. Then we would look at things like your prowess. And so when I talk about prowess, that's really about your personal and professional experiences that you've had in your life that have shaped who you are as the business owner today. And it's really easy for us to think that we just need to think about our business experience or our professional experience. But actually, there is a lot that we bring from a personal perspective, things that we have been through in childhood or early adulthood, experiences that we have had that really shape the person that we are today. And so it's really important, I believe, in order to go back and to look at some of those things that have shaped us personally and professionally, and think about how that has affected who we are, how that affects the way that we work, the way that we approach our clients and building relationships with them, because we've all got those things within us. And that is a big part of what makes us different. So it's not just about the services that we offer, it's actually about the the way that we approach our work and how we connect with clients and the reasons behind that. And of course, when you know what those reasons are that are guiding the way that you work, then that can be a really powerful part. If you want to share it, can be a really powerful part of your storytelling. And again, your differentiation in terms of what you're talking about. And then the last part, I think I'm up to number 6. The last part would be, what is the perception that you would like people to have of you? And so this isn't about trying to create some kind of false perception. It's really about thinking about what is the space that you would like to occupy in your ideal client's mind. So it relates to positioning. And so I think one of the things that's really good for us to do is to be really clear on, it goes back to understanding what we want to be known for, how we would like people to think about us, because that affects the way that we communicate. It affects the things like our tone of voice. It affects the type of content that we put out. If we're thinking to ourselves, my personality strengths are that I am empathetic, that I would love clients to see me as being that supportive shoulder, that I want them to feel really seen, heard, and understood, that empathetic perspective, that they see me as a really kind person, then we think about our content, for example, and our messaging, and we integrate that into we integrate what we're talking about into our messaging. So in relation to our perception. So it just helps to guide some of our communication. And I think when you bring all of those kind of 6 components together, it really helps us to stand out in a different way. And it certainly helps to give us that really good understanding of who we are as a business owner and actually what makes us different. Because I think a lot of the time, we think to ourselves, either I don't really know what makes me different, or there isn't much that makes me different from others. So doing this kind of work can be really powerful also from that confidence building perspective as well, which essentially is so much in business, is having that confidence. And when I talk about confidence, I'm talking about that inner confidence to power us to really put ourselves forward in the most powerful but comfortable to us way. Yeah, so that's a bit of a process that I take people through in order to draw out what makes them unique, because essentially, we've already got everything within us that we need in order to stand out. It's really about extracting those things. I know that sounds a little bit painful, extracting, but it's about drawing that out of us so that and getting really clear on it so that we can actually stand in our power and share our talents and our brilliance and our uniqueness with the world, essentially.
Oh, yes. So many things. I love your process. I love all the P's in there too. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. I had to make it all P's.
Oh, of course. It's wonderful. And I love how you're essentially just the extraction process. It's like getting very deep into who you are and like broaching you as a person from lots of different angles and seeing how all of these things work together to create the personal brand that you are showing up as. I'm so glad you brought up the confidence thing. That was coming up for me, where not only are you going to share this with the world, is it going to make it easier for you to share with the world? Is it going to be magnetic to the people who really you should be working with and helping? But also it just gives you that inner confidence to show up to. I would love to talk to you about your thoughts on the evolution, people evolving in their business then once they go through the process of this, because personally, as you were talking, this was coming up for me somewhat. I've been in business for 4 to 5 years now. It took me a good year to lean into like my authentic self, just realize who I am, show up as Kinsey and Feel Good Social and evolve that as a brand. And I feel very like solid in who I am. I feel very solid in my brand. And also, this has happened like recently in the past 2 weeks as of this interview, guys, when we're recording. So that's why I'm bringing it up. I've been butting heads somewhat with the evolution of social media always, of course, but then also like the introduction of AI, Chat GPT, because authenticity and genuineness and realness is like such a big part of Feel Good Social. And also, so is figuring out how to do business in a way that works for you, how to market your business in a way that feels good to you. Like all these different things is such a big part of Feel Good Social. And so for a while, I was butting heads, feeling all curmudgeon-y with the AI stuff, being like, it's going to hinder our creativity and it's going to make people feel less genuine and real. And I've recently had an awakening or whatever you want to call it, where I was like driving in the car for 2 hours, like one of those long drives, have a lot of time to think. And something clicked for me where it's like, no, I'm having trouble with this because it's fear-based for me. Let me lean into this. Let me look at this. Let me embrace this and think, how can I make this AI thing work for Feel Good Social? And I realized actually, so funny, AI to me, it feels like it could be the missing link. It can help us with so many different things that I didn't even realize. And like a lot of the things that we've been struggling with, this can help us. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it now. And it was just funny to me because all I needed to do was realize that Feel Good Social doesn't need to change because AI is being brought into the picture. I need to look at AI and realize how is Feel Good Social going to use this? You know what I mean? And so it felt like just such a guiding North Star moment for me and stuff. Do you feel like some of your clients struggle with evolution over time? How do you like broach that with them?
Yeah, so I think business is always an evolution. I don't think that we're ever just stuck doing that one thing. I think just naturally as humans, we're curious and we develop different strengths as we go through. And so I always say that you from an evolution perspective in business, you don't need anyone's permission in order to evolve your business. And gosh, I've evolved certainly over time. And I think that's a natural part of it. And it's the same with things like your messaging as well. Like I talk to my clients about the fact that really, your message is never one and done. You're always evolving your message, for example, in order to make sure that it stays relevant to your ideal clients and to what you're feeling is important at that point in your business and what your beliefs are. And our beliefs change alongside things that are happening in society. So we change our beliefs, our perspectives, and businesses change and evolve in response to economic climates and things like that. And so too does messaging, and our clients' needs change. So I think generally there is always that evolvement, but I think it's coming back to those really core principles and values and our purpose within us, and knowing that is like that anchor point that we can always come back to and feel really strong in, and ask ourselves, am I just, for example, latching on to this trend or latching on to this new piece of technology because it is something that's new and shiny? Or is it because actually I'm feeling called in a slightly different way? So it's actually just really exploring why you want to evolve in your business or your messaging as well. But in terms of things like technology, like AI, I think for many people, particularly in creative fields, copywriting and things like that, I think that there has been a lot of fear around what AI potentially means for jobs. And I think that fear does come up for many of us when there is new technology that kind of comes along and replaces things. But like you, and I'll admit, I was the same as you. I don't know about Chat GPT and all the rest of it. I'm not too bothered about it. But when I started looking at it and thinking to myself, I can actually stand here and be not so much afraid of it, but just, I don't need that. When I actually stopped and thought to myself, actually, I want to understand it. I want to understand how it can actually be used to help from an efficiency perspective in business. I think that then some light bulb moments like you, I had light bulb moments for how you can potentially use things like ChatGPT. But I always do come back to the fact that if you're really strong in who you are and what your purpose is and what your values are, then it doesn't matter what tools you have to use. Essentially, you're always going to be coming from that really clear perspective around who you are and what it is that you're trying to achieve. I would say, though, that because we could potentially create so much content from something like ChatGPT, I think it's always making sure that whatever you're using it for, you're always putting it through that lens of who you are as a person. So you're either using it for ideas generation, which it can be a fantastic tool for. Instead of starting with a blank screen, again, it can just help that process and get you going. But I think it's always using it through that lens of who you are, what your business is about, what your values are, and just really being authentic. And I think that I don't necessarily think that it's going to stifle creativity. I think that it can also be used to enhance creativity. And there are so many other sort of tasks within business that we can use it for in terms of researching things like customer pain points or getting it to analyze things like our tone of voice. So if you've written pieces of content, putting your own pieces of content into it and asking it to extract your tone of voice, your authentic tone of voice, that you can create things like tone of voice guidelines. So you can use it in all of these other ways that can really help us to become incredibly consistent in our business and cohesive as well. And yeah, I think it can really help us to spark so many new ideas within our business. It's just always making sure that you're running it through the lens of who you are and what you stand for. And obviously as well, fact checking it too. So always making sure that what it's spitting out is correct as well. So I think that it's just making sure that it's still coming across as you, that, you know, it's still coming from you, coming from your heart, your core, and fact checking it.
Yes. Oh, I totally agree with you now that I've left my curmudgeon ways behind. And also, I know I've been thinking about that too. It actually is a tool for certainly generating creativity, for helping you gain clarity even. I love it for that. And also it'll help you enhance like your critical thinking skills in a way. Is this representative of me? Like, how can I tweak this here or there? And I've been playing around with it in so many different ways. It's so funny. I was literally playing around with it before we hopped on here. I was writing this personal story about, I made shrimp rolls for my husband the other night. And like, it was one of those things where I was like, what do you want for dinner? And he's, I don't care, whatever you make is fine. And instead he turned to me and he goes, I want shrimp rolls. And like, it's one of those dishes that I don't usually ever make because I made it one time and it was like a messy disaster everywhere. And they're lumpy and I'm like spilling things. And so I made them the other night. Again, spoiler alert, disaster. I ended up with one giant one that was literally like Chipotle burrito size. And then another like mess of one that was like super tiny. Like it was, whereas he made them like a week ago and he made a plate of like 10 beautiful ones all stacked up. And so then when we ended
sounds
up
like
with
it's
two,
his job to make them.
He is our shrimp roller. Anyway, I'm like trying to write up this story because I did a storytelling workshop yesterday and overarching relate it to business in some way. I'm like, I'm going to relate it to like overstuffing your business. And anyway, this is somewhat of a tangent, but I threw that into ChatGPT and I was like, finish this story for me. And it was hilarious because it has totally actually nailed Feel Good Social's like voice and tone and vibe, just for me saying down to earth entrepreneur, helping down to earth entrepreneurs show up online in a way that feels good to you without wasting your time, selling your soul, losing your mind, that sort of stuff. And it'll like spit things that back out at me like, you are this. And I'm like, I am that. It just makes me feel good about myself. Let's be honest. I'm like, I've been showing up authentically. Yay. But then I threw this story in there and it spit something back out to me. And it was like decently written. And it did give me ideas for the transition, right? Oh, yeah, that's a great point. I didn't think about how that connects to business. Cool. And I still totally rewrote the end of the story, what it gave to me, because it still wasn't like quote unquote perfect, but it wasn't necessarily exactly me. Anyway, that's a whole tangent, lady, but I don't know why I shared that. It was just on top of my mind, but it's so true. It can be helpful, but it's always running it through you, your own authenticity and like your own soul. And I love that.
I do want to just mention one point, because you talked about your shrimp rolls and one being a bigger mess and stuffing it.
Oh, yeah.
When I talk about messaging, one of the things that I say to my clients is your message is not a burrito. And so what I mean by that is that we have a tendency to overstuff our messaging, to think that we've got to get absolutely every single little piece of information about our business into our messaging strategy. And that isn't the case. It's really about looking at your messaging from that higher strategic level, that overarching level around what it is that we're wanting to say from that high level perspective, so that we can really make it clear to people in terms of what we do and how we can help people, what we bring to the table. So yeah, if there's one thing I can leave you with, it's really don't have an overstuffed burrito when it comes to your messaging. Yeah.
Or an overstuffed shrimp roll. There you go.
Exactly.
I love that. Thank you for saving me. You totally tied my story right into this podcast.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. This has been so much fun. And like, I could totally talk to you for so much longer. But we do have to end the show, unfortunately. I do know that everyone is going to want to connect with you and find out more about you. So can you share with everyone how they can do that?
So you can find me on Instagram. So I'm at the Hayley Maxwell, and I'm also on LinkedIn. So I guess that's Hayley Maxwell. I've been playing around on LinkedIn lately, and my website, which is just hayleymaxwell.com. So those are all the places you can find me.
I love it. And we'll link things in the show note as well.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for coming on the show, Hayley. I loved our conversation, and I know our feel good as well.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. And I really hope that your audience gets lots out of it. So thank you so much.
How wonderful was Hayley, you guys? If you couldn't tell, I was just geeking out that entire conversation, because not only do I love talking about finding that authentic power behind your brand deep within yourself, but also Hayley is just so cool and totally gets it. And I love her actionable advice when it comes to applying this stuff to you and your brand. So if you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you share it with someone who could also use to listen to it. And also, if you share it on your Instagram stories, don't forget to tag me. I'm at Feel Good Social, because when you tag me, then I can see it, reshare it, and spread the love right back to you over there. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will catch you next time I catch you. Thanks so much for listening, my friend. For show notes and a whole lot of other awesome freebies, visit feelgoodsocial.com. Simply go to feelgoodsocial.com for all the goods.